Hello, humanity. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, or maybe it's the middle of the night wherever you are. And we are broadcasting from beautiful, sunny Auroville in southern Tamil Nadu. And I am so thrilled today to have Samrat on our program. Now, he brings so much to this program that it's just going to unfold. But one of the things was you were 3 years old when you went into the ashram school. So you're almost a child of Mother and Sri Aurobindo.
Absolutely. I fully agree to that.
And as Hamish said, you almost look like one of them. Won't mention which one, Sri Aurobindo, obviously. But then also what I find so fascinating is that you have done so many things here, from being a kindergarten teacher to working at Matra Mandir to being a chef. Was it a chef as well?
No, youth hostel manager.
Youth hostel manager, could have been a chef. And now the executive at Quiet Healing Center. But even prior to that, and this just blows my mind, your grandmother and grandfather were revolutionaries, and they fought for India's freedom, and both of them were imprisoned.
Yes.
Wow.
They were imprisoned, and what I have been told, I don't have the memory of my grandfather because he passed away when I was very young, but I've been told by my parents that he had lash marks on his back because of his independence movement, freedom fighting revolution.
So there is a lot of fire and freedom that's in you.
Absolutely. My first memories are memories of growing up in the lap of my grandma. And my grandma was wonderful. She often spoke to me about the independence movement, and she told me mythological stories, heroic stories, and she was an idealist par excellence. She often said that when you grow up, you will help the people of this land, and you will do good things for the poor and the needy. And somehow that idealism struck a deep chord within my heart.
Absolutely. And as I'm listening, I've known you for about 9 years, 10 years now, and I did not know this. And there is something there that I think strikes all of us, not just about you, but about women of that time and what they brought to this beautiful country of ours. No?
Yeah.
And
very, very forward-thinking women. Because my grandma, she was an idealist who put herself out there on the field. That's why she was jailed. She put herself out in the freedom-fighting movement. And they belong to a particular sect in the Hindu religion, which is called the Brahmo Samaj. Now, the Brahmo Samaj was started by a great social reformer in West Bengal whose name was Ram Mohan Roy. He was the one who helped to abolish sati, the widow burning.
yes.
And also he helped to get rid of child marriage. He was the one in his own particular sect where he said, let's do away with the caste system. So, like, I don't know from which caste I am. Usually in India, by the family name, by the surname, you can find out from which caste you are. Yeah. And my surname is Das. And Das, funnily enough, can belong both to the highest caste, which is the Brahmin, because they are the servant of God, and it can belong also to the lowest caste of the Shudras, which are the servers. And that's the beauty of it, that there is no high and low. It's all one.
You know, and as you were speaking, when you said the servers, server, also server of God, right?
Yeah.
A divine servitor, which is what we're all here in Auroville.
Yeah.
Before I get into some other things, I'm also thrilled that your little boy who just turned 1 year old is half Canadian.
That's true.
And of course, I'm Canadian, but I'm also Indian.
Yeah.
What a thrill to have this little one jotting around and whatnot. And
Yeah, it's a joy to behold him exploring the world. It's beautiful to see this phase in the life of children when they are looking at everything with a sense of wonder and exploration and sheer joy.
Absolutely.
Joy of living.
The sheer joy. And, Mother talks so much about that sheer joy and that laughter, that when we release the laughter and when we live in joy, it shifts ourselves, yeah? Now, you grew up in the ashram school. What was that like for you? And you've also been in Auroville for more than 20 years. Can you share a little bit about how that has shaped you to be here in Auroville during these very interesting times?
Yes, interesting times is a
Hard.
way of putting it.
Yeah, difficult.
I think it is both interesting and it is also very critical. And we, all of us as community members, now we have to really bring our most conscious attitude and approach to moving our Auroville forward towards a place of harmony and self-exploration and manifestation of the city. Meaning growing up in the ashram was as if I belonged to one large spiritual family. That was the feeling, because there everybody is called by Da or Di, which basically means, so you call anyone elder to you by Da or Di. Let's say I would call you Fifth Di, that's the elder sister, and I would call you Hamish Da, that's the elder brother. So that's how we were brought up in the ashram. So it's one large family. My earliest memories were very interesting because I had the privilege to have contact with some of the senior most disciples of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Like I used to go for sweets to Nolinida. And one day he grabbed my hand and he asked me, "Do you like the sweet more or do you like me more?" And Nolinida was asking me with a sparkle in his eyes. And I replied very innocently and naively, "I like the sweet more."
Of course, as any child possibly would. Yeah.
And I also have the recollection of learning the Sanskrit mantras and shlokas from the ashram Gujarati poet called Pujalal. He had his room in the ashram premise itself, the main ashram building, very close to the Samadhi. And it seems my first interaction with him happened that I was that time a tiny tot moving around freely in the Samadhi, and somehow my mom lost me. And I found my way, it seems, to Pujalal's room, and Pujalal was resting on his bed at that moment. And I don't have naturally the memory of this. This is what my parents tell me, that it seems that I walked over and I just lay on top of his chest and fell asleep. And my mom was going frantic and crazy looking for me all over the ashram premises, and finally somebody told her that they had noticed me going in there. And so that was my first, you might say, contact with Pujalalji. And he taught me very beautiful, melodious Sanskrit shlokas and mantras. And I cherish those moments with Pujalalji. I cherish those moments with Nolinida. I cherish that feeling of growing up around the Samadhi. It was like we used to... It was very funny. As children, you play little games, isn't it? So we used to move around the Samadhi, sometimes keep our hands all wet, and then put our palms fully on the flowers which are put on top of the samadhi as a decoration, and then somehow the flower petals would come out, and we would take them as blessings and happily munch some rose petals. So those are the beautiful moments.
Not everyone in our audience knows what samadhi is.
Yes.
Can you?
So the samadhi is basically where the bodies of Mother and Sri Aurobindo are buried. Mm-hmm. And for me, it has been a place of deep inner connection and a feeling of coming home. Even today, when sometimes I feel I'm disbalanced or unhappy or anything, I do like the feeling of going to the Matri Mandir, which is close by, and sitting at the banyan tree, which is beautiful. But sometimes also I have that very strong urge to go and sit at the samadhi, and I immediately feel aligned within myself, this feeling of home.
So you're working very much with that subtle body, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, as a child, it was, the physical, putting it to your face and eating it. So you were ingesting as well.
Yes, yeah? Yes. And the thing was that Mother talks about spiritual education. And I always wondered, what is spiritual education? Is it spiritual education? Is it just reading of books and exploring ideas, or is it something more? And that something more is that atmosphere, that powerful charged atmosphere, which is always present somewhere, and which we can connect to in certain powerful places. Yeah, the samadhi is a powerful place which really has if one is a little open, one can immediately connect to that spiritual atmosphere, which is always there somewhere in the air around us, but sometimes we find ourselves a little closed in the moment because we are so caught up in our own day-to-day activities.
Is there a different feeling for you on your birthday when you go to Sri Aurobindo's room, or is it a similar feeling for you?
For me, Sri Aurobindo's room is also very special because it feels as if I enter into a space of timelessness.
Yes.
That is the exact feeling you get when you go and sit at Sri Aurobindo's room, as if you have entered a space of timelessness.
I just want to go back to speaking about your grandmother and grandfather, because they also are from Bengal, as is Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah.
Did they know each other, or do you know?
So my grandfather and grandmother, I don't have too many details about their, let's say, pre-marriage times. Also because in India, culturally, one doesn't talk about the romantic period of one's elders.
Yes.
So I don't have too much knowledge about that. But what I do know, and that's a very interesting fact, that my grandparents did visit Pondicherry and did attend a meditation at the ashram playground in the late 1950s when Mother used to come to the playground and she used to offer a meditation.
Yes.
They did join in for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And my father was also for a while in the ashram. He was one of those who ran away twice from home because he had this very strong spiritual urge to join a spiritual community. So once he had run off to some ashram in the Himalayas, and the second time he came to South India, to Pondicherry, to Sri Aurobindo's ashram, and he was an ashramite for a few years. And it's in the ashram that he met my mother, and they fell in love, and they had a kind of a runaway marriage, which was afterwards accepted by both the families, fortunately, because sometimes in India culturally they can be very strict about it, and they can
Yeah.
reject you or ostracize you fully. But both the families accepted it.
And are both your parents still alive?
My parents are alive, yes.
Yeah.
My dad is now, he had left the ashram when he married my mom, and he had found a job back home in West Bengal, and that's where I was born, in West Bengal. And now my dad, it's been many years already, he retired, he took an early retirement from home, and he started giving voluntary service to the ashram, and he's now a proper ashram member, or ashramite as we call. And my mom is an ashram volunteer for ages. Yeah. Here in Pondicherry.
Wow. So can you just share with us the relationship between the ashram and Auroville? Because we've got some close connections there, and they come and they support with cleaning up under the banyan tree and Matra Mandir and various things.
Yeah, and as you know very well that when Auroville started, during the inauguration ceremony, there were lots of people from the ashram who came, because Auroville was a project inspired by the mother. And mother was running the ashram that time.
Yes.
So naturally, all the ashramites came here. Oh, and my dad was at the inauguration ceremony
in 1968.
Yeah, he was there. He went to the Auroville inauguration ceremony. He was part of it. He passingly mentioned it a few months back, and I said, "But Dad, you never told me this." And he said, "Yeah, I thought it was not important."
Things we think are important, for them it's just daily life. I just went there, I went shopping,
So anyway, so definitely ashram and Auroville have both been inspired by Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's vision of the integral yoga.
Yes.
And still, there is one. If one looks at it in a very detached manner, there are differences in it. Like in ashram, when you are actually an ashram member or an ashramite, you cannot be in a relationship, not at least in a physical relationship with a partner. Because it's an ashram. In India, these things are more defined in that way.
Yes.
And otherwise, there was in the past there were certain perspectives by these different communities towards each other, like. The ashram people in the past thought Auroville was a place which was a little too free, and Auroville people thought, oh, the ashram was a little too rigid. But I must say that the times have changed.
Yes.
The times have changed, and there is a much closer rapport now between the ashram and Auroville. There is a bigger and larger acceptance of each other, and also let's say there is also a closer exchange in terms of, okay, what is the richness we can bring to each other, richness of experience, because each one have lived their lives as a community for several decades, and what can you bring to each other?
And we have people like you, Mandakini, Sri Moy. We have others that have been brought up in the ashram that now live here and can be, I don't want to say a conduit, but there's that bridge. Now, of course, with Mandakini and you, there's the younger Aurovillians, right?
Yeah. Well, younger. Well, I'm not that young anymore. I'm young still in spirit, but I'm 47 now.
Are you really 47?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this little one is really keeping you active then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mandakini is just a little younger, and there's still some that are younger that are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so now being in Auroville and even at the ashram, there's foreigners that are in both places, right?
Yes.
And they've given everything up to come here to be divine servitors. And with everything that's going on, how do you see this and how do you feel?
Yeah, I personally feel that this is the time where we all have to bring our highest possible and our largest, most embracing approach towards what is going on at present. Yes, we have to acknowledge that there is a certain division between our community. There is a certain division in the approach of how things should proceed. We should address that division. And, traditionally, all over the world, communities had two kinds of people. You had in the tribes and all, you had people who were the peacemakers.
Yes.
And then you had people who were the warriors. And they were both equally important. The peacemakers brought their wisdom and really upheld the community together and brought in that perfect marriage of all the different approaches, the different expressions, self-expressions, and brought it to a point of unity, a feeling of oneness. And that's what's needed today within this community. But also today, there is equally the need to have the warriors who stand up for the rights of the community, who stand up for the Auroville way, that we stand up and say, yes, we want to go forward, but let us go forward the Auroville way. And what is the Auroville way?
Yeah.
The Auroville way is the freedom of manifesting this dream of Auroville, the vision, the mother's vision of Auroville, that freedom of manifesting it through our inner and outer self-discovery. And that is very important. This freedom is very important. It is very important that we go forward through our own Auroville processes of autonomy, of finding ways to come together, and that there is not so much this dependence or this limitation by outside interventions. And that is very important. And I think today it is important that we come together, we resolve our differences, and we express our wishes together towards the Auroville Foundation and the Indian government, and say, yes, this is what we want as a community to move forward.
So very succinctly, because some of our viewers are not aware of what's going on. Of course, here in Auroville, we're all aware. We're living it every day, every breath. But very succinctly, can you tell us a little bit? I mean, this sort of hit its pinnacle, really, I think, on December the 4th, no? December 5th, around midnight, no?
Yeah.
So we've been going just a little over a month, and it's been hard.
Yeah. What is going on is basically that there has been already for a while a certain difference of approach within the community, which somehow was not brought to the limelight. It was a difference of perceptions, you might say.
Yes.
Some people wanted the town development to go in a certain way, which was not being manifested. And there were people who were frustrated that it's not being manifested yet, that there is a certain tardiness about it all. And now suddenly with the government intervention, the government suddenly says that it will pour in money and try to manifest the township. There is a certain pressure from outside to make it happen. But while this pressure can be great in terms of us becoming conscious that yes, we have to manifest this township, but it is also important that we have the freedom to manifest it in a very conscious way, in a sustainable way, because we have to be aware that we are living in Auroville, which was a wasteland, which was a wasteland given up by the Indian government 30 years back or 40 years back.
It was given up, was it, when you say that?
Meaning it was pretty much deserted. It was arid. There was nothing there. There were just 1 or 2 palm trees. And the first pioneering Aurovillians, they did a great job. They worked the land. They did water harvesting, and they changed the landscape. And thanks to them, today we have a green Auroville. We have a really sustainable Auroville. And somehow, I think we have to be conscious of this. We have to acknowledge this. And from there, move forward towards building this township. So there can be a certain harmony which we have to bring about in this manifestation.
And they also were very close to the people in the surrounding areas in the village. So it was the people from the villages and the foreigners that came together to manifest what we have now.
Absolutely. And even the Matri Mandir. Even the Matri Mandir, it was both the Aurovillians and the villagers who were working on it for years and years. And that's how we have today such a beautiful center, a beautiful symbol of our Auroville soul.
And when we speak about consciousness and building and manifesting this city, when I came here, I thought, wow, this has already been manifest. But now we realize that it's much more than this greenery. Mother's vision was to have 50,000 people here, to have infrastructures here. And what is, in your perception, the Auroville way to do this in terms of consensus building, and how do we go about doing this?
I think first what we do need to do is actually come together, sit together, and just accept each other as human beings. Sometimes when there are burning issues which are put forward, issues which are motivating each one of us, what happens is we are so caught up in it that we forget that, okay, we are just brothers and sisters who are manifesting this dream of Auroville together. And we tend to put ourselves in our own perceptions very strongly, because naturally we are very passionate about our perceptions. And I think to a certain extent the problem is that while being passionate, how could one also bring in that flexibility, that wideness of vision to come together, accept each other, embrace these different perceptions of how Auroville should proceed, and then go about bringing a concrete manifestation of it. So, like, for instance, today, this dream weaving meetings and sessions, they are excellent because you have these experts from so many fields and domains of Auroville coming together, breaking their heads and bringing forth a certain largeness in the approach, a certain approach of sustainability in getting forward. Because we don't want to be just any city in the world. We don't want to be a Calcutta. We don't want to be a Mumbai. We want to be Auroville, a very consciously manifested city which has really come from our own hearts and our own passion and our own vision.
And what I love about the dream weaving process was, I think there's some 18 architects that are coming together with resource people, with engineers, with whoever else they have, water harvest, the whole bit, where they don't criticize, right? You come together, you make your proposal, and you get constructive feedback. And then you also get feedback from the community. So we just finished having 3 amazing days where it was live streamed, and it's still there. We'll have to put the link there so people can listen to that as well, where you can also, as someone like me who's a medical clown, can have input into this, and they're taking it into consideration, and then they will narrow it down. So now I believe they're going away for some 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Then they will come together again, and this process will continue. And then we're looking at what is the next step. And they're also involving Doshi and his whole team as well. Doshi, sir, no?
Because he's a very famous architect, Doshi, and his team will definitely bring in a certain vastness of experience in building of cities and all. So when it is done in a collaborative approach with the Auroville architects and Auroville experts in forestry, experts in water harvesting, experts in architecture, experts in many other fields, basically.
Solar,
So if it is done in this collaborative manner, it would be great. Unfortunately, there has been a certain pressure from the Indian government to go about manifesting it very quickly by just bulldozing and making a certain road, which is called the Crown Road, and I think that's their perception that this is how the city can be built. But the city has to be built in a very conscious way. So I personally feel that we need a moment of pause, a moment of discussion amongst this expert, a moment to give this chance to this beautiful dream weaving project to come up with concrete solutions.
Yes.
And then let's move forward together. And that is so important. In Auroville, we are here for human unity. People from all over the world are living here, and we are for human unity. We are not here to enforce one approach over another. No, it is never going to work. All over the world today, there is a certain issue at hand. It is an issue of how can you move forward with acceptance of each other's approaches. And otherwise, one can swing very badly. One can swing very badly, and one can go into a certain kind of an approach which is very authoritative. And that is not Auroville. Auroville needs that freedom to breathe, the freedom to grow, the freedom to explore. And yes, let us bring a certain intensity in manifesting the township now. It seems that is what the moment calls us for. So let us bring that intensity in manifesting this township, but let us do it in a conscious and collaborative way.
No, absolutely. And you spoke about the peacekeepers and the warriors. And this is that time for the peacekeepers and the warriors to integrate. And now, we've had people that have been here for 52 years. Frederick, for example, and yourself have been here for more than 20 years. And there's so many of our brothers and sisters. I have an OCI. You're an Indian national. But there are so many people who are living in fear right now. They've given everything up. They've given their homes, their family, their heart to be here in Auroville to manifest this city. And they're frightened for their visas. They're frightened for so many other things. Where do they go? How do we embrace them?
As an Indian Aurovillian, I must say I'm very concerned. If Auroville is to remain an Auroville, which is a township of human unity, it cannot proceed by threat and fear. This is completely contrary to the Auroville spirit. And it should not be accepted by anyone within Auroville. Even if, let's say, right now, the agenda which is there on the table by the government, if somehow it is in alignment with some people's perceptions of how it should be within Auroville, they should have the broadness and the acceptance of spirit to realize that one cannot go about enforcing a plan by curtailing the freedom of people by the threat of their visas.
Yeah.
As an Indian Aurovillian, I'm really concerned about my brothers and sisters, the foreign Aurovillians.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I'm wondering is, meaning today they are under some kind of a threat of the visa, and tomorrow perhaps there might be some other threat for us also. So we have to come together and say that no, listen, we like your idea of moving forward the town planning and township, but give us a moment to come together, give us a moment to formulate a certain conscious approach of town planning, and then we move forward. Mm-hmm. We are not denying that urge, but let us do it in an embracive, collaborative way.
Absolutely. And when we speak about the threat of the visa, it's if you are perceived to be obstructing justice, or if you're not signing a piece of paper for a visa renewal. If you're sitting back and not being involved because you're terrified, then of course you're safe. But then you're not safe inside because you're not able to release your heart, to release your mind.
Yes, and meaning one has to really think ahead. Meaning you can be safe for today, but if you don't want to be in the thick of things. Yeah. But what about tomorrow? Tomorrow, if you're not careful, our whole community will be run by laws and rules and regulations. And where does Auroville go? Where does that freedom of spirit of Auroville grow?
It's the freedom and the spirit of humans. It's the whole world, because we are the microcosm of all the problems and all the solutions. So if we are able to solve this, how can that go out into the world to manifest? And as you said, it's like when we come together and we can have true community, true communication, no judgments, the peacemakers and the warriors together. Our elders, you're approaching elder now.
I feel as if I'm a bit of both, because there is a part in me which is very passionate, about freedom of expression, which is very passionate to fight any kind of threat or limitation of our Auroville spirit. What has happened is what our own internal process of self-governance, be it the residents' assembly or the working committee, it's all under threat today because somehow the foundation has brought in such a strong approach to everything that it has put in question our own internal processes of self-governance. And that we have to stand up for. Because that's how Auroville stands on its 2 feet.
Yeah.
It stands on its own autonomy, and it has to remain like that. So that is very important. So I'm very passionate about it, and I feel that all of us together, we should say, no matter what our individual perceptions are, we will not threaten our fellow brothers and sisters by the visa or by any other means. That is not, or by violence, or by anything.
Yes.
This is not the way to go about it. This is not the Auroville way.
So, as someone who is a meditation teacher as well, and has grown up with in the ashram, I'm hearing so much from people that are saying, I'm just being bashed and bashed and bashed, and I don't know how to stay aligned. What is it that people, from your perception, can do to have some of that alignment within themselves? Because it's a little difficult outside, because you're not quite sure, who do I trust, right?
Yeah. I think for alignment within, one can also just lean back into the earth itself. The earth has a magical quality of grounding. So if one can truly unite one's own heart space with the earth space, there is no difference. This space in which we are walking, this ground in which we are walking, is our space of awareness. It's our own heart space. It's our space of love. And if we can meet other brothers and sisters, no matter their perceptions, if we can meet them from that ground of love, of centeredness, that's when we can move forward. And it doesn't matter if you come with a totally different perception. So be it. Let's meet. Let's accept. Let's embrace each other. Let's ground on this earth. We are children of this earth. That is our first mother. Earth is our first mother. Let's spring out of the earth as brothers and sisters. Let's spring out from this Auroville earth, which is a very sacred earth.
Very, yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would love to share with us? We could sit here for another 9 hours, but we just have a few minutes.
I think the need of the hour seems to be that amongst each other, that we come to a place of acceptance as brothers and sisters. So let's just drop our judgments and let's just come together. These are the people with whom we have lived for so many years together. So let's come together. Let's love each other as human beings first. We are human beings first.
Yes.
Before anything else, be it a person who is for this kind of project or that kind of project. We are human beings. Let's start from that base of humanity.
So one of the concrete ways we can come together is to participate in the Dream Weaving project, to send emails, to have conversation with the architects, with David, Omar, all the rest of them that are there. The other thing is when you're at an eatery or wherever, go up to someone and say hello. Introduce yourself to them.
Yeah. You know what I did the other day? So I have been also in the thick of things. So I have a very, you might say, very strong perception that things should go in a very sustainable way.
Right.
And to a certain extent, I have disagreed with how things have been approached till now, where it has been more like JCBs and bulldozers and all. So to a certain extent, there has been a kind of a vilification between different groups. So the other day, I came across Lakshay from the TDC. The TDC is the Town Development Council, and basically they have been the ones who have been pushing for this Crown Road development with the bulldozers and all. And out of the blue, spontaneously, something within me felt like greeting him as a human being. And that I felt was, wow, that's beautiful. That's what we need to do more to each other. Just accepting each other as human beings.
You know, at the last RAM Residence Assembly meeting, Neva and I co-facilitated. And at the beginning, Lily, who is a Aurovillian, I think Lily has actually been born here as well, did a small little skit about 69. So when you look at the 6 at one level, it's a 6. But when you're looking at it from this perception, it's a 9. And we just had this 2-minute little thing on stage where we're going, it's a 6, it's a 9, it's a 6, it's a 9. We got into a fist fight. And then it's like, but we crossed over, and Lily will come on the program as well. But we crossed over, and we both sort of said, oh, that does kind of look like a 6. You're right, it does kind of look like a 9. I'm not willing to forgive and hug just yet, but willing to listen. Let's fist bump, you know? And so,
Yeah, so somehow opening the channels of heart connection again.
yes, opening those connections of heart channel. And as Amish and Lily both said,
it's the sign of infinity.
infinity. It's the sign of infinity.
And there's always this yin and yang, this energy for manifestation and the energy for centeredness.
Yeah.
Both are important.
Absolutely. And there's a time for seriousness and focus, and even within that seriousness and within that focus, there can be joy.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of joy and laughter with you right now. And one of the things we do when we wrap up the show is we laugh for a few reasons. One is the benefits. It might be an exercise. It's like, pumping iron and doing all this. But this is laughter. You're exercising your laughter muscles, your diaphragm, and your chest at this point. And heavens knows with everything else that's happening in the world, we need to make sure that our bronchial tubes are really, really working well, and our endorphins are zinging up. And then it's with the intention of from our heart, feeling that love space going from our heart throughout all of Auroville, throughout Tamil Nadu, India, the world, and to all the universes. Will you join me?
Absolutely.
And of course,
I will gladly join in this yoga of laughter. It is much needed in Auroville today at this moment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this program. All the best. You are living the legacy of your grandparents, your parents, and now you are leaving it to your son.
And above all, I'm living the vision of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and each one of us are living that, and that's how we should come together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Cypriya, Hamish, will you join us as we laugh our way out to all of you wherever you are in this world? Blessings.